if they don't wind up the last one standing there against someone. Boston, Cleveland, we'll see. Next one. The Knicks lost to the Spurs last night, Jay Will, by 15 points. Without Jalen Brunson, they have really been struggling. What are your thoughts on the Knicks?
I still think even with Jalen Brunson, I don't see them at the top of the class in the Eastern Conference. I think this team lacks the physical toughness that you need in order to go to the next level. I think that's a big question. Karl Anthony Towns is a special player. Love the additions they made. I just don't see them in the same class as the Cavs and the Celtics.
Monica, for those who don't know, Monica is the radio voice of the Knicks, so you know that team about as well as you can know a team. First of all, do we know when Jalen Brunson is coming back? Because obviously that's a major factor.
The latest report was 1 to 2 more weeks. I'm looking at April. That is me observing the situation, knowing how tricky those ankle sprains can be. I'm sure that they would like to see him back on the floor before the playoffs get underway, so I'm looking at April.
Yeah, and so I see the question on the screen, or had been on the screen there for a moment there, and I went out of the order. Was last night a bad game or a bad sign for a Knicks team that seems to be limping a little bit right now?
It was a bad sign in that it reminds you how badly they need Jalen Brunson. I mean, this is a Spurs team who you could debate whether or not they're trying to win, right? And now, granted, Sandro Mamukelashvili had a career night. Yeah. 7 threes, you run into a buzzsaw. But what has been thematic for the Knicks this season is when they get off to slow starts, it's very difficult for them to find their way back into ball games. And that was even with Jalen Brunson. And so that he's come up short throughout his career, and now how much he needs the rest of his guys. To Jay's point, though, and shout out to Corey Alexander and Michael Grady, we're literally arguing about this weekend. What can you target when you look at Cleveland? The thought is, obviously, you go at DG in terms of their starting lineups. But I think Darius Garland's speed is something that other teams have to account for as well. So if they're playing their best basketball, I really think that could be a 7-game series with Boston.
I love the graphic. They lost their 3rd straight after winning their previous 16.
Yeah.
It was their second 15-game winning streak of the season. So we will see. We'll keep an eye on all of that. Meanwhile, I invite everyone to grab your sheet of integrity and let's get ready to play Boost It, baby. Today is one of the biggest betting days of the year.
Upside, as we saw last year with that deep run to the Final Four. It can also work very poorly, as we saw late in this season. I also don't trust Rick Barnes in Tennessee, who have struggled. Barnes has struggled in March. I'm not willing to overlook that.
All right, that concerns me because I have Tennessee in the Final Four. Talk to me about the SEC.
I think a problem that the SEC is going to have is throughout the course of the regular season, Greeny, they were the best conference, but they were also the most physical. And they called a lot of fouls, and the free throw rate was decent on par, but it was about the lack there of fouls not called. Right. And I really think that's going to be a challenge when you transition to the first weekend of the NCAA tournament.
You mentioned that in the Texas highlight. What you're saying, I want to make sure it's clear what you're saying, that these teams are used to playing a physical style, that if all of a sudden the games aren't called that way in the tournament, it could wind up hurting them.
Think about it. Trey Johnson on the fast break against Xavier last night, pushes him in the back. In the SEC play, that's not called, right? But all of a sudden, that's called now in the first weekend of the tournament, and that means referees are going to be tighter with the whistle, and that means teams are going to have a harder time from the SEC.
Nâng cấp cách bạn giao dịch với ứng dụng di động Exness. Khoảng 15
into some player props that are out there. Some of these SEC players can get themselves into foul trouble. You might want to look to unders on the scoring props there. Great call by Jay Will. The rare great call by Jay Will.
That's a great note there. Okay.
Jeez, Joe.
He just took a shot at you.
I know.
You knew it was coming.
Because you're wearing a Rick Pitino suit. I expected nothing less from you.
Here we go. Let me go to the second one. Of the over 23 million brackets filled out on ESPN, 36% of them have either Duke or Auburn winning it all. Based on that, at ESPN Bet, they're offering a choice. You can have Duke or Auburn to win it all, or you can have the rest of the field. You see the odds on your screen. How do we feel about that one, Joe Fortenbaugh?
I'd play the field here. I like Duke. I don't like Auburn. So I'd rather just play Duke straight at plus 280 rather than incorporate Auburn and end up getting the worst price. The thing with Auburn is Michigan State could be a problem for them in their quadrant. Iowa State could be a problem for them in their quadrant. They could be a problem for them in their quadrant. Focus, consistency late in the season were big problems. Free throw shooting, good, not great. I have concerns there as well, Jay Will.
Joe, I'm with you on the Duke pick, so I'll take the field, too. The thing about Auburn is interesting. They lost their last 3 out of 4 games. And Janai Broome has his sleeve, like he's National Player of the Year with going against Cooper Flagg, has his sleeve on his left leg. He has been dragging that left leg for the last month and a half. Now, he's still putting up buckets, but still Chad Baker-Mazara, another player that's kind of like the Draymond Green of college basketball, can lose his cool.
I picked Florida to win the whole thing anyway. I mean,
that's okay.
I don't have. My point is, I don't have either of these teams winning the whole thing, so I would pound the field. Finally, we focus on the 1 seeds. It's always a question how many of them will make the Final Four. There's only been one NCAA tournament in which all 4 1 seeds made it. The over-under at ESPN Bet is 1.5 1 seeds in the Final Four. Which way do you go on that one, Fortenbaugh?
Boost it, baby. I'm leaning to the over, but I've only got 2. I'm a fan of Florida. I'm a fan of Duke. I'm not a fan of the other 2. When you look at Duke, love the draw. And on top of that, what do they do poorly? They check every single box. And then there are the Gators, who have been outstanding late in the season. The thing with Florida is they can beat you any way you want to play. Tennessee tried to slow them down, no problem for the Gators. Alabama tried to speed them up, no problem for the Gators. Those are the 2 teams I'd be looking for. So, yeah, I see 2, but I hold it at just 2, Greeny.
I say 2. Everybody knows the name Cooper Flagg, a name you will get to know. He's the college basketball version of Steph Curry. That's Walter Clayton Jr., who plays for Florida.
Okay.
Stud.
Keep an eye on those. Those are the 2 that I have in for whatever it's worth as well. Get your sheets of integrity in right now and much more. Joe on ESPN Bet Live, 11 Eastern on ESPN2. Track the upsets, bet the favorites at ESPN Bet Sportsbook. New customers can get $100 in bonus bets when you make your first $10 wager. Download the app. Sign up with the promo code GETUP today. Coming up, back to the NFL. Love it or shove it? Should the Super Bowl champ's signature play be banned? The debate is next. Get up on ESPN.